Browser. Yep, here it is. And here it is. Okay, so all anime portrays collective anxiety. So I was like going for something kind of like darker, like I don't know, more interesting. Like everything is interesting, like about like art in general. So I don't know, but yeah, let's check this out. Dartux Games. I think I've watched like a lot of stuff from this guy. So yeah, let's check this out. Let me just check out my fucking like stream once again because fuck you Twitch. Like it's not fuck you Twitch, it's my mic. Okay, it's my microphone. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so how anime portrays collective anxiety. You know what I don't have? Not anxiety. So this is actually fascinating to me to listen to.
Year is 1996. A young high schooler we'll call Darius is practicing American football. He goes to tackle another player, their helmets collide, sweat flies, and things go white for a moment. Darius is shaken up, disoriented, but the sensation passes as quickly as it comes. I'm fine, he tells himself, and returns to practice. As he is driving home from the field that evening, he begins to notice that he cannot see in his left eye. He treacherously veers, panics, stops, and calls his father. The next day at the doctor, he is assured his vision will return in 2 to 3 days. It does not. Doctors run tests, MRIs find nothing. His primary care physician can find nothing wrong, and according to his ophthalmologist, it was impossible for Darius not to see in the bad eye. Another round of tests at another eye specialist out of town finds nothing abnormal. Even this second opinion yields no answers, and yet Darius has made no improvements. This young man is now half blind, and doctors cannot ascertain why. Okay, fair warning. Today, I am going to do something on this channel that I never do, which is talk about psychology that is based not so much in replicated empirical research, but in the ideas of a few psychologists in the early 20th century.
So this is like when it comes to psychology, I studied psychology quite a lot. Like this is valid when it comes to psychology. Psychology is a lot like philosophy because a lot of like basically a lot of people see psychology these days as this inaccessible. Like psychiatry is something else, but like psychology as this inaccessible uh realm of thinking where it actually like is closer to philosophy or actually like just view it as shamanism. Just it's for this the next idea is that you will actually talk about be more legitimate and actually be more empirical actually. So objective in certain ways because there is a lot of like perspective linked to psychology that is like basically more or less philosophy added with like some chemicals. So just because it's really interesting, and art has like this really like ability to actually change people for the better, for the worse. I'm actually like on this one, like I'm talking too much. Just basically like this, like some random dude trying to talk about psychology is not invalid. That's just what I wanted to say from someone that actually studied that.
Ideas that have very little, if any, current day research backing them. By talking about these ideas, I am not saying that they are true or false or even really taking a stance either way. I'll simply be presenting them because they are important for the subject matter at hand. Will it be interesting? Wildly. Will it be entertaining? I certainly hope so. Will it be something to better understand yourself or be taken as advice? Well, that's entirely up to you. Use your own judgment. We will, of course, also be talking about a few actual scientific studies as well, including the one I opened up with, and we'll swing back to that was, in fact, a true story covered in this research paper. Oh, and here are your trigger warnings, and there will be minor, no context spoilers for a few shows throughout. I'll tag them with this as they come up. But for the first time ever on Psych of Play, we'll be talking about psychology from a historical and cultural perspective. But then again,
So this is like important, and this is something that even psychology these days forget, that cultural perspective. So the culture, habits, religions, and whatever, is as important as like the medicine progress themselves, because you can like the same psychology does not apply to the same cultures. Like it is always like different to each culture and to each individuals, which makes it really interesting and fascinating to actually study and to actually like work in. But so just to just add to the argument that like what this means, it's not because he's not a psychologist that he doesn't have the right to talk about psychology, and that his arguments or opinions are invalid just because he doesn't have a fucking paper. Uh, yeah.
this isn't a Psych of Play, is it? I have watched a lot of anime in my day. I have read a lot of manga. I have played my fair share of anime games. I am what you would call a closet weeb because I don't really talk about this much unless we are close friends and you also enjoy this little slice of media. I've never really been able to put my finger on it, but anime and manga have always done a spectacular job of doing one of two things: making me squee like a little girl when something aggressively wholesome happens, and giving me a chance to interact with something extremely heavy or uncomfortable in a way that no other medium really does. I'll give you an example. My wife and I recently finished the first season of a show called True Detective.
I will agree with that. Like that anime as a way, and the Japanese artists and nowadays actually like worldwide artists are able to portray like ideas in certain ways that are just were never seen in different other types of medias. So to me, like it's a subculture. Anime became quite a subculture of what happened in between reading like books and the invention of cinema, like but a subcategory of that, because like it allows you to portray the impossible. It allows you to portray certain character traits and um just character personalities through actually like visual coding. Visual coding. You know the red thing on the face, this or like being red, or like the like there's if you watch anime, like you know what I'm talking about, being like being fully red because you're actually like angry and stuff. Like if you get me on that, this is actually called visual coding. And so when you code this and you actually like agree on a convention of codes, this allows for like a new type of like expression of well ideas, reflection, philosophies, as well as well whatever the fuck you want at the end of the day. Well, that makes it really interesting because as well as it comes from another culture. At least it came. Now it is like slowly becoming like mainstream, which is interesting because like the core stays the core, and but we get to see what others can do with the same well coded conventions.
It's one part buddy-buddy cop show, one part twisted crime mystery drama, and about 5 parts character exploration. Over the course of several years, our two main characters, detectives Cole and Hart, work together to hunt down a man who has been brutally murdering women while also dealing with their own off-the-clock anxieties. Hart's marriage and relationship with his daughters is in shambles as he turns to alcohol and women to cope with the abhorrent sights he comes across as a detective, and conversely, Cole is obsessing over his investigative work to distract himself from a past trauma. Really heinous killer. We through their endeavors directly through their trauma. The first
So about the past trauma, I just lost footage not too long ago. It actually made me lose like a lot of like basically like future whatever the fuck you call it. So about past dealing with past traumas, I just need to check real quick if everything works on the stream, if my video is actually like if there's sound and stuff. So let me just check this out real quick, like because like past trauma, yeah. Perfect. So past trauma dealt with. Let's go.
season at least, illustrates their struggles directly through their actions and dialogue, and metaphorically through their endeavor to hunt down this mysterious, putridly heinous killer. We understand what Cole has gone through because it has manifested itself in his repeated nihilistic mutterings.
I think human consciousness is a tragic misstep in evolution, programmed with total assurance that we are each somebody, when in fact everybody's nobody.
That sounds god fucking awful, Russ.
Let me just do something. I'll be annoying. It doesn't matter. Let me just give me.
And we understand
Everybody's nobody, with total assurance that we is a tragic.
in his repeated nihilistic mutterings.
I think human consciousness is a tragic misstep in evolution, programmed with total assurance that we are each somebody, when in fact everybody's nobody.
That sounds god fucking awful, Russ.
And we understand what Hart is going through because we watch him repeatedly, strongly regret his decisions. And through the pursuit of a common enemy, we see them grow and overcome their demons, at least to some degree.
So I'll give you like the story. Basically, two detectives. The personality is quite simple. One is actually like quite intellectual, and the other is quite in the action. So one reacts to ideas, the other reacts to feelings. So the second one that is not about like fucking like go kill yourself philosophy is actually the one reacting more to feelings, and that makes for like an interesting show.
This is how a lot of stories in the Western world are written. Internal struggles are manifested through actions and dialogue. Evil is represented by another character or group, and overcoming said evil is a metaphor for the good guys overcoming the darkness they have within themselves. However, in my experience, a ton of anime is written just a little bit differently. I realize this is a gaming channel, so to ease us into this, why don't I start with an anime game? Persona. Imagine for a moment that in True Detective, both men had to face their inner demons directly, not in a physical sense through their decisions, but in a metaphysical sense by literally facing their darker selves. Imagine that the killer was not a person to arrest, but instead an aspect of a person to defeat. Imagine that the villain was not just a man serving as a metaphor, but instead a literal polymerization of Cole and Hart's anxieties and dark thoughts. This is how many manga, anime, and anime games like Persona illustrate evil. We don't just see real-world consequences of internal anxieties and fears, we see actual metaphysical manifestations of them that are to be dealt with directly.
Okay, wait a second. I felt a miracle happening. Okay, no, that was not.
In Persona, the gang doesn't deal with this teacher's sexual harassment by catching him in the act, getting evidence, and reporting him. We go meet his subconscious self and physically beat it into submission until it will listen to reason and understand the error of its ways. In a really fantastic anime called Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, yes, that is the real name of the show, we see a handful of characters who aren't just facing anxieties in the way you or I might, we see those anxieties come to life in physical symptoms. Mai Sakurajima is slowly realizing that people in the real world can no longer see her. Not emotionally, as if she doesn't truly feel seen, but physically, she is fading from the awareness of the people around her. Even going so far as wearing this in a public library just to see if anyone will finally notice her. This is happening to her, as we find out, because she feels isolated due to her complicated relationship with her mother, work, and school life. Later in the show, her younger sister Nodoka's jealousy of Mai causes them to swap bodies until they can work through their issues. In Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuta Okatsu is haunted by the death of his childhood friend Rika, which again doesn't result in a nihilistic worldview and obsession with the cold case. It manifests in a wildly powerful and jealous cursed spirit that represents the trauma of losing his first love. And we see this everywhere in anime and manga. Hitagi Senjigahara's weightlessness in Bakemonogatari as a symptom of repressed trauma that would otherwise weigh her down. If you've seen Naruto, you'll know that the Sharingan Eye manifests when a Uchiha reaches a certain level of hate and only grows more powerful as that hatred intensifies. And I can't tell you how many times in shows like Gurren Lagann, it seemed like they made these physical giant robots and drills grow from sheer ambition alone. Spiral power, cursed energy, ki. Japanese media seems to have a fascination with physical or metaphysical manifestations of emotions. We don't just see emotion embody motivations and a dialogue, we often see it embody the real world itself as an actual hurdle to be overcome, a real tangible location, an enemy, a weapon, an appearance, a symptom. It's almost like a surreal, fantastical version of what our friend Darius is going through. You see, what I didn't tell you is that Darius is suffering not just from blindness, but also an immense amount of pressure from his father. Our boy is a 6'5", 290-pound dog, and he's still only in high school. His coaches, his community, and especially his father are all expecting great things out of him. Being in his shoes means going to a big Division I college on scholarship and could mean stardom one day in the NFL. And because of this pressure, Darius is experiencing an uncharted level of stress that is manifesting in a wildly unconventional way: blindness. This is an extremely rare condition called conversion disorder, when an anxiety, an emotional trauma, a fear manifests symptoms that cannot otherwise be explained medically. And it's not just blindness. Another study highlights a young boy that is losing mobility in his arm and experiences constant pain throughout as a response to his father's unemployment and his mother's scare with cancer.
Yes, and this is also like why I technically like dropped and went on my own on studying experimental psychological studies, because people do not fucking take into account feelings when talking about psychology. You wouldn't believe how much people fucking because feelings and actual medical health. So basically, like, it is proven by doctors that like you will fall ill more often if you're depressed. This is factual, right? But basically, within this industry, people do not fucking take this in account because, since this is factual, no matter what the scale or the range or the specter of this of the illness or the patient or like the case study you're studying, this will always be true. And because of that, like, what he says is actually like what I was saying about legitimate psychology. Well, basically, conventional and conventional psychological basically studies not fucking taking into account like feelings and also physical health, and just like the intertwinement of both, meaning like the connection between both, where it's like, well, I don't know, like you're depressed, you don't get out of bed, you get ill, you start eating like worse and worse, and basically after that, what happens? Well, you fall ill more, and then what happens? Vicious circle. You actually get more depressed, and then you get actual like fucking bad illnesses, because like there's like it just like goes like two turns like this, and you can get actually like, let's say, cancer, or let's say like fucking like mm, how is it called, let's say like incurable diseases, just because well, basically you did the full circle twice of you feel bad, you do not take care of yourself, because of that you fell ill, or your life, like your quality of life lowered, and because of that you actually went into a different, like a deeper state of depression, and this deeper state of depression led you to this time to something actually like an illness that is actually like recognized. And this is why a lot of like specialists sounds like idiots to a lot of like to a lot of the youth, because well, basically they don't take into account this, and to another like degree, they do not take into account like basically like they really disconnect, and this really fucking thing that like psychology is like, the mind is an organ separated from other organs. No, this is traditional medicine. Organs are disconnected from other organs, not the mind, not the spirit, not the soul, not whatever the fuck you call it, right? And yeah, so this is for like just my critique of like, because I've read so many fucking things, and it's always the same fucking like arguments, and it's just and basically like the stupid looking dude that tells you, hey, maybe fucking go outside and fucking do something. Well, basically he's right most of the cases, because well, basically if you try to fucking like better your life, there's a good to fair chance that like your fucking state of mind will improve, and the vicious circle becomes like a virtuous circle, so the opposite. Well, like you actually do something, improve your quality of life, and basically your depression lowers up, and then it actually like makes you improve your quality of life once again, so a second time, and this time actually you fucking get out of your fucking illness. Voila. So this is kind of like how it happens. So basically, the dude that actually fucking sounds stupid telling you, and maybe like fucking find a hobby or something, is actually a better psychologist than most of the fucking like psychologists that fucking like do the fucking like fucking insane studies that tell you like words that you do not understand. Trust me on that one. I studied that way too much, and I'm way too passionate with this to fucking like tell you lies about this. Well, it's to each their own interpretation, and this is like the beauty of psychology. It's so similar to philosophy that to each their own interpretation. We're all fucked up in a way, so yeah.
There is another case of a woman dealing with speech impairment and tremors in response to memories of sexual abuse. If you remember the girls of Leroy in the old Lavender Town video we did, same business. Physical symptoms for mental wounds. Many would call it faking, but these symptoms are experienced as very real to those afflicted.
Not only very real, fucking like verifiable through actual traditional medical tools.
You see, conversion disorder is one of the body's ways of intervening when a stressor becomes far too much. Darius felt like he couldn't quit football because of his dad, but after the psychiatrist in this study stepped in and made it clear to Darius's father that this might be the issue, Darius and his father talked it out. It was made clear that he could drop football if he really wanted to, and that
But it just means just one thing that I like to add. It doesn't mean like that the chemicals that they prescribe and their effects are actually invalid. Like this is valid. It's just that the discussion, and basically the discussion that most people have with their specialist is actually the wrong one. But the classical medicine behind it, right? So the pills, right? So the pills and everything around it is legitimate. It's legit, right? So just so you don't fucking think that like I'm anti-vax, anti-medicine or whatever. Fuck. No, the medicine work. It's just like the fucking like the fucking like perspective of the discussion that people have usually with their specialists that is false. But you can like, to be honest, like you can still find it within like actually passionate psychologists. I'm not a psychologist, I'm just like someone who studied it, but basically you can find what I'm talking about within like good psychologists, the ones that actually are passionate about healing, helping, and you can just feel that like they're here, you know?
That his father would love him all the same. Once they had this talk, the eyesight returned within a few days. Senjogahara's weightlessness can be interpreted as a safety mechanism to keep her from carrying the heavy burden of her home life falling apart after her mother's abuse. It's only after she accepts the burden as her own that her weight returns and she can begin to move forward. Relations between Mai and Nadoko were strained by a mutual jealousy. Those feelings took form in a body swap to give each other a chance to literally walk in each other's shoes. It's only by understanding and accepting each other and themselves that they can return to normal. And I think this is one of the many things that fascinates me about anime, the surreal nature with which internal struggles are illustrated. It's artfully placed in the open as a player rather than just a motivator.
And technically, like to a certain point, we actually are all living in anime. If you just take the time to take the time to think outside the box and just consider what dreaming does to your psychology. Because like the struggles that he talks about is basically like are not like lived within your conscious life, but are lived within your subconscious life and conscious life within dreaming. So you get your anime fucking like a moment within your dreams. This is why you actually like, well, again, it connects to psychology where like you, well, people with trauma will say you have nightmares. So this is exactly what he describes. And this is actually a really good point that he makes about anime and connecting like, and the way I actually like find it fascinating how they portray certain type of storytelling, certain type of stories, just because actually it connects to a lot of things. Anyway, I'll stop talking. I'll listen to the smart guy instead of annoying you.
Now, at this part of the script, usually I am asking,
But why?
why do people play games the way they do? Why does this game make people feel this way? And so here, I was asking, why so much conversion disorder? Was there some mass psychogenic event in Japan at some point? Where is this coming from? What is the connection between this illness and this trope? And the answers I found were, well, they weren't that simple, because this trope isn't that simple. I'd like to make a proclamation. I really like Chainsaw Man. It's an absolute
I really like Makima, my best girl, and I really like, and I kind of like Chainsaw Man.
roller coaster of a manga. The anime is going to be a banger. I like Makima. I like Power more. I like Denji best. I feel sorry for Kabini, and sometimes I wish I could teleport her to that planet in Teen Titans where the little aliens give you massages and feed you grapes. And one thing that I find interesting about Chainsaw Man is that the characters known as devils in it all derive their power from public perception. The more the general public fears said devil, the more ferocious it becomes. For example, sharks are scary, right? I think most people would agree. Here is the shark devil. He's pretty strong. Bats? Yep, same thing. Here is your bat devil. Anyone afraid of chickens?
Yes, it's safe here.
Yeah, not many. So here is your chicken devil. Guns? Yes. Especially nowadays, especially after certain events have taken place. And Chainsaw Man does not stray away from this. The public's collective anxieties manifest here much in the same way that they do on an individual basis in our little slice of life anime. And as I was reading Chainsaw Man back in August of last year, it really resonated with me, but it also occurred to me that I think I've seen this before. Jujutsu Kaisen, another show that I really quite like, actually quantifies and makes a currency out of negative human emotion. Cursed energy. All humans have it, and as it leaks out in times of strife, if enough is built up, a cursed spirit is born. Populated locations like hospitals, parks, and schools are typically breeding grounds for these baddies because of all the dark emotions associated with them. And in certain cases, like our boy Yuta from earlier, it only takes one heavy trauma to create an extremely powerful curse. And historically, I think a lot of this general public anxiety feeding into the power of the bad guys trope comes from the old Shintoism belief in yokai, mischievous spirits that inhabit the world around us.
Oh, I love. So I was actually like rethinking about yokais. So I didn't knew the name, but yokais actually are such a beautiful belief within Japanese culture. That spirits of nature are just existing, and basically it's complicated. It's just like so pure and beautiful. I don't know. Just check it out if you want your dosage. Like if you want to actually, because it talks about anxiety and talks about those things you think yokais and try to fucking find like an anime that talks about them, because like this is like pure happiness and pure comfort if you're living in dark thoughts, you know?
In the show Natsume's Book of Friends, a yokai's power is determined by the number of people that believe in them, which I think is an interesting parallel to this idea because some sources say that one origin of yokai is that they were superstitious explanations of misfortune in Japan. Take for instance the Kappa yokai. They spend time in lakes and marshes, love to
Kappa emote, kappa emote, kappa kappa.
wrestle with children, and will, occasionally drag a child
I wish I had more followers just so someone could fucking put a kappa emote.
downstream with them.
Wait, maybe I can put it myself. There's no kappa. Such.
They're superstitions and folktales that only gain steam the more credence they are given. They are only as real as the public makes them. The more these things are talked about, the more they take form in the collective unconscious.
So this noise is about me like just searching for the kappa emote again. Let me find it. Like if you didn't knew, like actually if you didn't knew kappa, where is it? Where is it? Kappa comes from a Japanese belief, and so wait, kappa. Oh no, it's not the same. Actually, but like basically the term maybe I don't fucking know. Maybe I was wrong. Kill me, sue me.
And this is where things get unsettling. I'm just kidding. We aren't talking about Ava. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist. He studied under Freud, take that for what it's worth, until he eventually went his separate ways from Freud because he disagreed with a lot of Freud's ideas, take that for what it's worth. Mainly, he thought that Freud's conceptualization of the unconscious was too limited and overly negative. He also disagreed that sexuality was a key motivating behavioral force, meaning Jung clearly never watched interspecies reviewers. He laid the foundation for the study of introversion and extroversion, and there is a crowd of psychiatrists still working today that consider themselves Jungian in their practice. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not here to take sides, use your own judgment, but most of
Yeah, and this is like kind of the part that like confirms what I was talking about where like even if they don't admit it, it just confirmed what I was talking about. And like psychology is really like similar to philosophy. Just like people consider themselves Sartrean or nihilists or just like fucking like what the fuck was the Greek fucking philosophers like Plato and stuff. Like people consider themselves like this. Well, it's the same. So you get the confirmation from the guy, and I get the happy molecule of I didn't lie about like telling you stuff.
Of his ideas, barring intro and extroversion, have very little backing from current day empirical research. One such idea is his concept of the collective unconscious, that lying in the depths of each and every one of our psyches is a genetically passed set of ideas that we share with every other human on the planet. Have you ever watched a movie and felt like you could place each character into a stereotypical category? The shady guy with ulterior motives, the wise, mother-like figure, the innocently naive hero who is inevitably betrayed or taken advantage of. According to Jung, these are archetypes that we all inherently understand from birth, and we recognize these traits in ourselves and each other because we come with a built-in blueprint of each. There are 4 main archetypes that you may recognize, 12 sub-archetypes, and Jung immediately proposed that deeper than that, there may be no limit to the number that exist. You might be afraid of the dark or clowns because they are archetypes passed down through previous generations. In a nutshell,
I'm afraid of my ex. Like, just want to tell it to the world.
your unconscious mind is the collective culmination of ancient wisdom that came before it. And you'd better believe that this has influenced a ton of media. You could argue that the objects of power and control gain said power because they are archetypes developed from being symbolic of something in the public eye for years. A ringing telephone, a rubber duck, a horse from a merry-go-round, ordinary
My ex calling me.
things that come alive due to repeated perception and associations. Katsura Hashino, the director of the Persona series, said in an interview with Killscreen that Persona addresses problems people hold deep in their hearts, and that his games are meditations on the true self, which you may have noticed from a moment ago, the persona is one of the 4 main archetypes proposed by Jung. To Jung, the persona represents all of the different social masks that we wear in everyday life. It's there to help us behave in a way that society expects, to follow social norms, and to mask all of the primitive urges, impulses, and emotions that aren't socially acceptable. Persona the games seem to directly comment on this by having characters, again, often face their own shadows and the shadows of others that, much like Jung's archetype of the shadow, are completely instinctual. The shadow is the unfiltered desire in the unconscious that is composed of repressed ideas, weaknesses, and instincts. The Persona series is actually extremely Jungian, and one of the most interesting places in the game for the purposes of this video is Mementos in Persona 5, which sort of illustrates the pop culture version of Jung's collective unconscious. It is literally a living, breathing, connected network of the general public's cognition. When it rains, moods drop, so monsters become stronger. When it's flu season, enemies often start the battle with despair. If it's a heat wave, they might start the battle burned. And this illustration of the collective unconscious, while a bit
So there is a term that I really like called the where is it? The standalone complex. So the standalone complex actually talks about uh, um it talks about like collective psychology that actually goes into some poetry or just I'd say history. A standalone complex describes a phenomenon where unrelated spontaneous events converge to form a seemingly orchestrated event or conspiracy. It's about how individual actions driven by similar motivations or information lead to an emergent phenomenon that appear coordinated, but it isn't. So basically, like he talks about like mass psychology and stuff like that. I just wanted to share you about like one mass psychology occurrence or like definition that I really like and happening that I really like.
faithful to the source material, I think also really embodies the collectivist nature of the general public in Japan compared to the individualistic nature of the West. And you can obviously see the parallels to this in Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen. The public's collective fears are a huge player in both series. Hell, even in a manga called Dandadan, the collective unconscious is mentioned by name when explaining why these
I need to watch Dan.
guys attacked the gang. By the way, you need to be reading Dandadan. It is
Dude, actually, well, I just check this out. Like this is the sign of God, Dan. Here you go. I will check this out. And what did I want to show? I wanted to now. Watch me fucking like not finish the video and start like watching Dan on stream and get banned. Okay.
genuinely fantastic. Mark my words, this will get an anime adaptation one day and take the world by storm.
It actually did. The dude was when was it? 2 years ago. Dan actually yeah, 2 years ago the dude was actually right.
If you thought
Good job on
Marin
you.
and Lady Dimitrescu were bad, just wait until the internet catches wind of Ayase's grandma. Anyways, we've well established that the collective unconscious, regardless of how accurately it is portrayed, is a huge influence on a lot of Japanese media. But at this point, during my research of this video, I still couldn't find a connection. Why was Jungian psychology so big in Japan? Well, honestly, it kind of wasn't. At least not any bigger than it was anywhere else in the world, so what's going on? What am I missing? Why was Jung such a big influence on the East? What? I had it backwards. It wasn't Jung that had an influence on the East, it was the East that had an influence on Jung. As fate would have it, a few years after Jung broke up with Freud, his interests turned east and he actually drew a ton of inspiration from Eastern culture and religion. According to this 2019 article from the Pacifica Graduate Institute,
Wow, this is so if you're actually like not into that stuff, it doesn't like what you just said is not really like it's not like the fucking anime finale that you wanted to fucking hear, but this is actually fucking powerful what you just said. What a fucking dude. So it wasn't fucking Jung that was like inspiring East. It was inspired by the East. The fuck. Well, here you go. Welcome to the fucking world of fucking like people that have no friends.
Jung's investigation of Eastern culture and religion supplied him with an abundance of cross-cultural materials to compare with his hypotheses of archetypes, the collective unconscious, and other manifestations of psychic reality. In other words, it's entirely possible that a lot of aspects of Jung's collective unconscious were influenced by the collectivist culture of the East as well as religions like Buddhism. What we've been talking about this entire time may not just be a Jungian influence, but also a Buddhist one. When Senjugahara is being questioned before she faces the source of her weightlessness, she is asked who her favorite novelist is, and she reports Yumino Kyusaku, who was in fact an author and Buddhist monk in the early 20th century, best known for his surrealistic narratives not unlike the ones we've talked about today. One arc in Jujutsu Kaisen's first season features cursed objects known as the Cursed Womb Death Paintings. These are 9 special grade objects created with mixed genetic material of both a cursed spirit and a human. These give rise to new villains and one of the most badass fight scenes I've laid my eyes upon in a long time, but the name Death Paintings is actually a reference to the Buddhist art of Kusozu, a series of 9 paintings portraying the 9 stages a decaying corpse goes through before it eventually turns to dust. They are, as you can imagine, repulsive, and the point was apparently to be a resource for monks. If a monk felt he was being tempted by bodily desires, he could view the art and remember the temporary nature of the flesh. Really cheery stuff. And in an interview between Gege
The fucking monks went hardcore to fucking like stay pure and not have wives. So basically, I'll translate to you what the fuck the monk he just said. So the monks, they were like, so within like Buddhist religions and religion, a lot of Zen religion, people stay actually like faithful to their virginity and faithful to their celibacy, to vows, right? And basically, the dudes, they're so fucking alpha. They went from, oh yeah, so to resist the girls, huh? Let's fucking like do studies about decaying corpses and watch decaying corpses if we are tempted. That will fucking show us. That will keep us in line to fucking find enlightenment. There were like probably like other steps, but like I respect the fucking grind.
Akutami, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen, and Tite Kubo, the creator of Bleach, these death paintings came up. Kubo noticed them and pointed out that he too likes to incorporate Buddhism in his writing. These rings that appear when Tosen uses his Bankai actually have the names of the 9 stages of death paintings written on them. Both admitted to finding the names of
Tosen. Wow. Actual beautiful reference in Bleach, that Tosen.
the 9 stages of death paintings written on them. Both admitted to finding inspiration in Buddhism and even agreed that it is essentially Japanese mythology, which I think is really the root of this whole collective unconscious idea.
Never heard about Bleach? If you never heard, check it out. It's a small element, like kinda nice.
Yeah, we've been trying to get at this entire time. There is a concept in Buddhism known as non-self. To wildly oversimplify it, by extinguishing one's selfish desires and replacing them with an undying loving kindness, you can find true happiness. That by practicing compassion instead of pride, you can empty yourself out, achieve the non-self state, and understand the fundamental meaning of being alive. And this non-self concept, as well as other Buddhist ideas, were a large influence in the work of one Japanese psychologist named Hayao Kawai, who actually introduced Jungian ideas to Japan in 1955. Jung and Kawai both agreed that the major difference.
Yeah, in 1955, it was like really like a random year. Like just like nothing will like happen in 1955. I just need to point it out.
Difference between the Western and
To fucking like mention 1955 in Japan. Kind of like average year.
Eastern conceptualizations of the self was where the self lies within our own consciousness. What I mean is that the Western self is very contained in the conscious mind. However, presumably because of the collectivist nature of the East as well as Buddhist influence, the Eastern self is not contained here. It leaks into the unconscious. According to Kawai, the self in Westerners is put in the center of consciousness, meaning that the self is thought of as strong, central, and independent. The Eastern self, however, lives in the unconsciousness, which means that the self is rather fluid. Jung echoed this. In 1954, he wrote, "To the West, consciousness is inconceivable without an ego. If there is no ego, there is nobody to be conscious of anything. The ego is therefore indispensable to the conscious process. The Eastern mind, however, has no difficulty conceiving of a consciousness without an ego. Consciousness is deemed capable of transcending its ego condition. Indeed, in its higher forms, the ego disappears altogether." Wait, leaks, fluid, empty, disappear? It all... Why does it always come back to Ava? Obviously, a lot could be said of Evangelion in this context, right? Especially that scene. Oh, right, spoilers for the 20-year-old show.
I see fucking like I watched this so long ago. He talks about Evangelion, and I'm like, I thought, oh, what the fuck? Except like solipsism. I just remember the fucking like, oh, everyone is you
Show
scene.
everyone's obsessed with. You can see threads of Kawai's illustration of the Eastern model of consciousness here. You can interpret the orange liquid everyone gushes into as unconsciousness. You could interpret the AT fields, which by the way stand for absolute terror fields, I just learned, as the
So after like I actually verified, though, I remember like checking out the orange food, Fanta, just Fanta.
boundaries of the ego, keeping the self separate from the unconscious and presumably the unconscious of others. Once it goes away, we all become one large nucleus of unconscious goop. But ultimately, Anno takes these Jungian Buddhist concepts, much like every other show we've talked about today, and brings a literal interpretation to them. To achieve the true meaning of life, the Human Instrumentality Project, not only does the idea of a self need to be abandoned to achieve happiness, but the physical self must be relinquished as well. Obviously, this particular ending of Eva is, well, a feverish nightmare, and we could spend hours picking apart what it all means and why I'm completely missing the point, but it's just another example that I think would be the most complete and the most striking of everything we've talked about today. You know, writing this script started with me trying to understand the origin of a trope I've seen in anime. Naturally, this being the show that it is, I went to psychology. I wanted answers, and I still can't decide if I really found them, but I think I did find something else along the way.
And this is what's important. Like psychology is like not only about the results, but also like about the discussion and the friends we made along the way. Kinda, like the when it comes to the philosophical ideas we made along the way, and the philosophical like personal like conclusions that we made along the way. Because like it never fucking ends. Like you think like there is no like last boss of fucking like psychology or feeling better. It's a work of every day, you
I
know.
think I understand why anime moves me the way that it
A daily job.
does. I am an American for what it's worth, and whether or not me living here my entire life has caused this or not, I am a very prideful person. I'm competitive. I'm insecure. I like to show off. I think a lot of myself, and admittedly, I'm not as empathetic or as good to other people as I wish I was. I am very individualistic. My AT field is strong as hell, dog, and I guess anime takes these subtleties of a lot of American media and makes them not so subtle. That burning feeling I get when I see injustice in the world, that's not just a feeling in anime, that's a transformation. Those sorrows I have about the people I've lost in my life, that's more than just a feeling in my gut. In anime, it's something tangible, something I can perceive and at least to some degree understand because it's taken a physical form.
And it allows for more poetry when it comes to your own like representation of self and your own feelings. And this is like what like everyone loves music. Everyone listen to music. Music is poetry. Movies are poetry. Like video games are poetry. And I think that like when it comes to like because like obviously you try to identify yourself in anime. Well, basically, like it allows for more poetry compared to Western type of representation. But I will actually go along the way, go further than that, and tell you that like Japanese theater also allows this. So it's not only anime that allows this like more poetic like perspective of self and perspective of like the world, but also like theater, like movies actually don't fucking.
And you know, the part that really brings me a lot of solace is that these
Video games kind of like depends on the video game. This is not like as restricted and as unique to Japan.
happenings in anime are all relational. We all contribute to mementos. We all have anxieties that lend themselves to a common foe. Our relationships with others are often what brings out the mental or very physical strength to carry on. The body swap in Bunny Girl Senpai happened because of a connection between sisters. All of Shinji's struggles and Eva manifested because of his struggles to get close to others. Darius's blindness stemmed from a desperate need to please the father that he loved and admired so deeply. It's all relational. We're all connected in one way or another, for better or for worse. Through the good and the bad, we're not alone. We're all in this together, and the feeling that I share both my anxieties and my hopes and dreams with the rest of the world is a sensation that I think only anime has ever really given me. Oh, that was a damn fun video to write. Look, I'll be honest, I have really needed something to shake things up because I have felt creatively in a rut. The Dark Souls video I made earlier this year has felt like my only quality work all year, honestly, so I think I needed this. And hey, maybe it sucks, maybe no one likes this, but man, I had a good time. Thanks for letting me get a little
It doesn't. It's really fun.
bit weird on this one. I promise the tight empirical research will be back next time. Also, real quick, please know that Buddhism is one of the many rabbit holes I fell down researching this, and I almost certainly oversimplified something in this video. If you are Buddhist or know a lot about Buddhism, I'm sure you know how the comment section works, and I would love to hear you clarify what I was trying to get at here down below. This has been a huge learning experience for me, and I don't want it to stop at writing this script. I'd also like to take a moment to say thank you, truly thank you to my Patreon supporters for making this video possible. On Patreon, we have these goals we try to hit, right? Once a certain amount of pledges are hit, to celebrate, I make a highly requested video. A Psych of Anime was the first big milestone we hit, which is how we are here now, and once we hit this goal, a Psych of Play on dating sims will be in the works. You can support the show for only $1 a month. Let's make this happen. If you'd like to be a part of this, follow the link in the description or in my pinned comment down below. Once again, a colossal thank you to my Patreon supporters, especially this month's featured patrons, Meadow, Ronald Gaida, Joe McGowan.
Actually, like, this will be my limit. But like, yeah, if you actually like have like money to spare, like support this guy as well. He talks the truth. He's actually like fucking legit and really adorable, to be honest. So yeah, I don't have enough. I don't have like the fucking resources because I'm busy trying to fucking make something happen here. Uh, But yeah, and fucking like 2D animated like waifus are actually fucking expensive, like gacha games and stuff. It won't be me, but know that like I support you for myself. Anyway, okay, so anime portrays collective anxiety. This was an interesting take, and actually, he talks about so many things that I actually kind of lost myself. But I think that this is kind of like where it was going for, where like I actually like don't even know what the fuck where to start. So I won't actually like go to a conclusion. The conclusion is, if you actually want more of anime, that like something that makes you feel like anime, take your fucking high heels, like fucking ego obsessed mindset out, right? And try out fucking Japanese theater. Japanese anime theater as well. Like, this is something that is really like emotional, really like light, and really like accessible even to foreigners, and that you will love if you actually like take the time to fucking like tell yourself that, like if you actually take the time to fucking tell yourself that you're not too good to, or to that you're not too good to watch fucking theater, right? Especially anime theater. Right. Once you fucking like get out, like get down from your fucking like cloud, you know, like maybe you'll discover something really great. So I mean, a lot of people fucking like are maybe I am assuming. Anyway,